I'm interested in network security and system security. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about security from both an enterprise perspective and from a residential user perspective. So we'll start off with the enterprise. One of the challenges that we have in organizations is that it's difficult to know what's going on when you start having a large network, like the size of WPIs. You have thousands of people doing thousands of different operations, and it can be difficult to tell whether a network flow is being created because an end user requested it or because malware requested it. What we're doing is we're creating a system that installs on each person's computer that will identify what the origin of the traffic is. It will say, for example, the reason that you're seeing this network request is because Craig clicked this button in the Google Chrome browser and I need to fetch the web page for him because he asked for it. That's very different from seeing a request that says Microsoft Word is requesting access to this website and it hasn't been interacted with in the last hour or two. Going, well, why on earth would it be doing that if there's no human behind the wheel? And that's essentially what we're trying to do. We're essentially creating a centralized controller that is getting visibility from each computer because they're asking permission and providing justification for each network request in advance. What's different about this from other approaches is that we're able to see what a user's typing into a computer. We're not going to be going and saying, okay, they typed in Facebook, but we are going to be saying they typed in 13 characters into the URL bar, and then they clicked something to cause an interaction to occur. We then combine that with what's happening on the network and saying, well, is this consistent with what somebody's trying to do? And if it is, we provide access. If it's not, we deny it. Another concern enterprises have is about websites or shared servers that they provide to end users. So one idea, if you think about a grade recording system for WPI, you have students and faculty members interacting with the same system. So what can happen is you can have access for these two to get blended together. So in this example, the client and server are interacting with a web server, and that web server has full permissions to be able to manipulate what grades are stored in a database. We call the web server a deputy. It is authorized to perform actions on the database on behalf of a bunch of different users. The problem is that that deputy can become confused at times. So let's say that a client, in this case a student, finds a bug in my code for my web server. And now they're able to get privileges escalated on the web server. When that web server talks to the database server, they're able to do edits that they otherwise shouldn't be able to do. And the reason is because that web server is all powerful. It has the permissions of everybody who could possibly use it. And because of this, when the deputy gets confused, you have access violations. What we want to do is be able to separate out a different web instance for every single user. So if a client is able to compromise a web server, that web server only has the permissions that is associated with that user. In this case, a student can read grades, but they aren't able to write them. And accordingly, even if they compromise my web server, they aren't able to do any kind of manipulation to the database. We give the instructor a completely separate set that's going to have permissions associated with it. So the system that we're designing is going to take initial requests, have a manager that will then create a bunch of infrastructure saying, I'm giving each user their own instance of a web server that's going to have custom permissions to be able to talk to a database server. And the orchestration of how to do all of that and customize the network flows is one of the research areas that I'm interested in. So that's all enterprise. When we think about home and residential users, one of the main challenges for them is that they don't have an IT staff at home, right? We don't have a WPI staff that's going to be able to help us set up our firewalls and configure our servers. What I want to do is be able to create a system, yes, it's a little complicated, but create a system that is going to allow a little $50 wireless router to be able to provide the same capabilities that you can do in an enterprise environment. And we do so by punting things off to a cloud server. So you can imagine a VM running at Amazon or Google or Microsoft's data centers, and it is going to vet all of the traffic and determine whether it's legitimate or not. So if you are interested in anything related to enterprise security, being able to create one-to-one servers, or something in the residential space, I'd be very happy to talk to you. I am looking for MQPs, theses, and independent studies for people who are interested. Thanks.